What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Squanch. This is Wisecrack's Rick and Morty podcast. I'm Michael Burns, joined as always by the Squanchers, Mr. Ryan Haley.
Wubba wubba hi everybody.
And this week's special guest, Wisecrack's own, the inside man, Michael Luxemburg, or as we just call him, Lux. Lux, how are you today?
I'm good. Glad to be on the Squanch with you instead of taking care of while you were sick.
Yay.
This is so much better
back,
for
Lux.
me emotionally.
Yeah, welcome back. First two-timer this season. So, that's not true. You joined the two-timer club with Tommy Cook, so that's a good club to be in.
Oh, hell yeah.
Today, we're here to do what you know we're here to do, which is talk about Season 5, Episode 7, Go Tron Jerisis Rick Vangelion. But before we get into it, we always like to just check in with this week's guest. I know you've been here before, Lux, but I'm curious. Just give me some thoughts in general. How do you think this season's going? You can be quick here, but I'm just kind of curious. What's the temperature you're giving the season now that we're 7 out of 10?
Yeah, it's a real P's and V's, which is to say peaks and valleys season. A couple episodes I've thought were like absolute fucking bangers. A couple episodes I thought were pretty flat. And yeah, I mean, it's just been a real roller coaster in that respect. I'm hoping we'll get some bounce back, although maybe you can already tell from my tone that I'm not totally sure this week is the week we get that bounce back. But yeah, I mean, it's been a mixed one. But yeah, that's basically my main feeling. It's been like a lot more just basic show and a lot less kind of crazy stuff.
That's fair. Well, because, well, there's only one thing to do now, which is really just get into it. I can't hesitate any longer. So let's start by getting everyone's initial reactions and, most importantly, the letter grade for this episode. Ryan, let's start with you.
I really liked this episode, so I'm glad that we have differing opinions, because to me this was a slight return to form. They brought back a lot of stuff from this episode. To me, this kind of tied a lot of episodes in this season, even episodes I didn't really like, kind of together in a bow. Like the Incest baby is back, and I know I kind of ragged on the Incest baby for the first episode. I like the Incest baby this time. I think that they were even addressing the Incest baby as like the weird thing that it is in the show. So I like that, and I thought the whole voiceover thing was great. To me, this was like a fun, inventive episode of Rick and Morty that I'm totally giving an A, just a flat A, not A- or A+.
I don't remember the last time you've given an A.
It's been a while. The second episode, obviously, of the season, I gave an A with the whole clone thing, and then I thought that they addressed that as well in a good way. Like like Summer had that kind of throwaway line where she's just like, Look, Morty, I know we don't know if we're clones or not, or decoys, so blah, 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 blah. And it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, so that is, they're still doing a serialized version of Rick and Morty, even though it hasn't felt like that in a while. So I like that and like you said, it's episode 7 of season 10, so maybe they're kind of starting to plant the seeds of maybe a 3 or 4 story arc that we're going to have, or a very loose one, which we kind of talked about what we like when they do the very loose story arcs.
Yeah.
There's things, I think that maybe hold this back from being one of the ultimate primo classics of yesteryear. But I do think that this is a great episode of Rick and Morty. Really fun stuff. It's got Power Rangers and Scarface vibes going too. So what else could you ask for?
Damn. I'm mad because now you said stuff that's making me think maybe I have a different thought than I did. And I never want to change my mind. Well, Lux, how about you? What's your initial reaction to this episode, and be a good teacher and give it a letter grade?
All right. Well, I thought this episode was all right. It had fun stuff that I liked. I liked all the things that Ryan flagged as being good stuff. I think a lot of the stuff between those things didn't super do it for me in a lot of spots. I also think part of it is that I'll get this out of the way early because we'll probably get back to it. I'm a big old anime dork. Love anime, particularly love mech animes. And it was a real bummer that they sort of were like, we're doing a mech anime, just kidding, we're doing Goodfellas. Really kind of pulled the rug out from under me. And it was weird and confusing, but like I executed all right. So overall I'd give it like a B, I think, a flat B. It wasn't the worst stuff of the season. It had some stuff that I liked, but it just didn't. It didn't pop me the way that, like, for instance, the Decoys episode did. Like, the Decoys episode was like, "Whoa, we're doing it," and this episode was sort of like, "All right, we did it."
Okay. You know, it's funny you brought up the decoy or the mech suit stuff, because I like the mech suit stuff, although my only real reference for that is Power Rangers. I'm not super familiar with much of that, but I loved when they when you saw the big screen of like 30 people that were supposed to be making up this giant mech, and I thought that they were going to go way far with that. Like by the end of the episode, there'd be 1,000 people a part of this giant ferret robot thing, and like I thought that was funny. But they kind of just ended that. Yeah, they just kind of ended that at some point and didn't show or continue with the trope. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Burns, cut you off.
No, not at all. I mean, that segues into what I think. 'Cause, you know, you talked about how you saw something and thought maybe they're going to run with this. I think in the episode in general, a lot of good stuff was like put out on the table, but it would be like if I went to dinner at one of your houses and you start putting out little small appetizers and everything's good, but what I'm thinking is, are they just going to commit? Do I get like a real meal at one point, or lots of cool little things that I enjoy a couple bites of but don't really like satisfy me? And I think that's what I felt in this episode. So many individual elements I loved. I love the Power Rangers stuff. I had fun with like the Goodfellas / Scarface mafioso type stuff. The earbugs at the end was fun. The after credit scene is maybe my favorite of the season. A lot of fun stuff was happening, but the episode didn't do it for me. I kind of want to change my grade because some of Ryan's points convinced me, but I want to be sturdy in my resolve and say what I was going to say before we started and what I wrote down. This one's a C for me, maybe a C+.
Oh, shit.
I know. I feel. I'm not trying to start shit.
Various opinions.
Hey, we got A and B and a C. That's really great. So this is good. I'm excited that we have different opinions because that creates more interesting conversations than if it's a masturbatory enterprise where we all sit around and take turns going, you know what was good? You know what I thought was good? Kind of like the Chris Farley show or something. But before we get into this non-masturbatory enterprise of comparing notes on the episode, let's do an episode recap. So here's our recap, friends. We start with Rick and Morty in summer en route to Boob World, which is a boob empowerment experience that lets you in for free if you bring a woman. But they're distracted by a green Gotron ferret, which completes their collection of all 5 Gotron ferrets in the universe. Now, Morty's mad because he wants to see boobs, but Summer bonds with Rick over the pursuit of Gotron glory. With all 5 Gotron ferrets in their possession, they invite Beth and Jerry along to go fight alongside them in their mission to kill giant alien bugs. At one point, Jerry also says he's ready to suck someone off. But because Rick can't take his own advice that enough is enough, he invites 5 versions of their family from different universes to create a Mafia-style 5 Families Council of Ricks, who they're going to help complete their own Gotron collections, then put them together into the Go-Gotron. Now, the 5 families, now with all complete Gotron sets, create this massive Go-Gotron, Go-Gotron, and they murk all the monsters in the universe. Summer climbs the organization like Ray Liotta and Goodfellas, but things start going badly when Morty is kidnapped by some anime kids, which take him off his security detail, which allows Hothead Rick to do some violence. Summer then loses her favor with Rick, and he hires the anime kids as new giant robot pilots and fires her. Summer then reveals that the giant incest baby is still alive and that she went to Mars on a military mission and bonded with it. The anime kids try to take over the Gotron from the inside, and Rick goes full Scarface trying to defend what's his. But before the anime kids win, the Smith family, riding atop the giant incest baby, fly in to save the day. With the Gotrons gone, the space insects kill millions a day on Earth, and the voiceover that's been going on the whole episode, which is reminiscent of Goodfellas, turned out to be some bugs inside Morty and Summer's ears. After the credits, we learn that all the giant alien bugs are just traveling through the galaxy, sacrificing their lives to spread the cure for AIDS, which is lemon, at least 4 bay leaves, and sea salt. I did like the ending.
Yeah, that was great.
I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then the scene at the end where we see the giant insect bug trying to yell the recipe for the AIDS cure with his last dying breath as he gets shot to death. So that's the episode. Lux, you're the guest. Get us started. What's something that you want to talk about from this episode, whether it's something you dug or something you didn't dig so much?
Okay, so, I mean, this is, like, why take such a long walk to do Goodfellas is what I wonder about this episode. And
that's what Rick and
worth
Morty's all about. Long walks to do stupid stuff.
No, but that's true. But usually it kind of all ties together A and B plots in a way. But this kind of felt very sectional. Like there was the beginning section of we're doing Voltron. And then in the middle it was like we're doing Goodfellas. And then it was Scarface, which is still kind of Goodfellas, and that's fine. But it just felt like a really weird waste of time. And like I think I totally agree with Burns' metaphor from the beginning that like it felt like a bunch of appetizers, no entree. Or in a way that makes the time metaphor make more sense, it felt kind of undercooked, and it just felt like, did we need to do Goodfellas, or could we have done more robots, or did we need to do robots to get to the incest baby? And maybe we did to get to the incest baby.
I like y'all's metaphor of this giant appetizer buffet, However, I would say that to me it because usually I would be somebody that would complain about that, like, oh, this just felt disjointed and like a bunch of loose ends. But to me, I liked all the parts, and more specifically, I thought it did wrap up nice with Summer at the end, where the big moral of the story that I got was that just because, you can't be trying to just make somebody else happy and that be how you derive your happiness, right? And Rick, who just has this insatiable need to, he's a hedonist and stuff, and Summer's trying to make him happy through all these different means, obviously, in this Goodfellas vibe. I thought that even though we took many different paths to get there, like unlike other episodes of Rick and Morty, I kind of got a moral from this episode in a way that like I did in other things. I thought they kind of, I don't know. What did you guys think?
I mean, I think that's a good point you're making right there, Ryan, because I do think it makes it really sad in that way, because you see Summer intoxicated by Rick's approval and enthusiasm. You see Morty warning him that that's a bad road to go down and it's not going to end well. And you see Summer become a psychopath, kind of like an addict, needing that approval. And it's like as soon as he rejects her, she comes back to earth so quickly and realizes that she got way in over her head. And I like that, and I like the way that ties into the way in a lot of those mob movies, it's about how power serves that purpose. And often you take a good person at the beginning of a mafia movie, like Michael Corleone in Godfather 1, someone who we think is like a decent enough guy, but how being in that system and seeking power turns him into just a goddamn psychopath. So hearing you phrase it that way, I think that was a good thematic.
I do think to agree with you, Ryan, there's a couple of this episode does, and I will cop this to the episode for sure, it has some really super good character lines, like really good characters explaining their relationships or their thesis of their character to each other. And one that speaks what you're talking about is the part where Morty says to Summer, I know it feels good when he's nice to you, but just because it feels good doesn't mean what you're doing is good, or whatever, something like that.
Right, yeah, that was a great line.
And I think that's true. And I think the episode does follow through on that premise in a lot of ways, and I think that's definitely a strength of the episode. The counterpoint, though, that's the same takeaway as the Chicken Tenders episode of Community. I just rewatched that this afternoon, and the end of that episode is literally Jeff going to Abed, and Abed's like, I messed up because I used my chicken tender powers to make everyone like me, and it felt good, and then they became too dependent on me, and it felt bad. And so it's just like, it felt, I think that's part of my reluctance with this episode, is that it felt a little like a retread of even if, obviously it's disputable how much Dan Harmon's involved with this episode versus that Community episode and whatever, and how many of the same people were thinking the same things, but I just associate the two in my head just by default, and I think part of my reaction to this episode is a little bit of, I saw you did this with Chicken Tenders already, and I loved it. I loved it to death.
Okay, yeah, I haven't even seen that.
But, it's a great episode. It's a fantastic episode of Community. They do the same Goodfellas voiceover. It's all about chicken tenders. It rules. Really great episode. But yeah, I do agree that they do hit that theme really effectively of the pursuit of approval from Rick specifically, and that does work really well for me.
Yeah, I love how that works, and also just the very idea of a Godfather's 5 families situation of 5 clones of your family is great. Like that's already a funny premise, and
it's fun to see the other Ricks too. That was really fun
because it's always a joy.
Yeah, because I think one of the it was fun in the clone episode or the decoys that they were all the same because it set up some good set pieces. But here it was great to see like alternate styled Ricks, and of course I think Yo-Yo Rick has to be like the new fan favorite.
Oh, he's definitely a fan favorite. And it was really funny how Morty couldn't relate to the other Mortys since he hadn't been to Boob World, which we better go to Boob World by episode 10 or we're going to riot.
Yeah, get our kid to Boob World, man. Get him there.
No Boob World, we riot for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I'm liking this one a little bit more the more that we talk about it. I still think with
I'm surprised you guys don't like it as much as me. I thought we were all going to be in agreement here. That this was at least a really good, solid episode. But whether it was, you guys just don't even seem to. You guys seem to not like it at all.
I think good and solid is exactly where I'm at. Like it's the incest baby returning, naming it Naruto. Pot for that. The all five family stuff. Pot for that. Like the way they did
voiceovers, the voiceovarians
called,
voiceovarians. I like those.
Yeah, pot for that. Pot for the anime people. Like it's like you said, or like Burn said. I think any individual 1 minute clip played for me on YouTube from this episode, I would laugh at it, and it was just like all together. It just didn't shape right for me. So it's like hard for me to articulate exactly because there's like very few parts where I was like, ugh. All like as opposed to like the sperm episode, where the sperm episode it was like a lot of me going, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this though, something that I totally agree with that, but I'll be contradictory and be the guy that gave it a C and then say good stuff about it. In general, most of my favorite episodes of Rick and Morty or favorite multi-episode arcs are ones that involve consequences. Seeing consequences for actions and exploring the dominoes that keep falling from those. So I do appreciate, this largely relates to the incest baby and Summer's arc in this episode. It was good to see action that was coming from direct consequences and consequences that were going across the season. I did appreciate that, and I hope there's more of that to come. And I do think if the season ends on a really good note, I will look back I'd appreciate this episode more than I did on its own.
I would like to take what you just said and do the opposite and say why I think that maybe this season hasn't lived up as much as some people think. Even though I do think that this is a better than normal season. I think when I think of that, and it's exactly what you're talking about, consequences. In the very first episode, when you think about when Rick takes him out of bed and then he's like, all of a sudden on this adventure, and he shoots some random bug guy, but the bug guy has a family, and then it's screaming in agony and stuff. It's like all this stuff seems so new for Morty, and is so like he's there and he's scared, and it's actually a big deal. And I think one thing that's missing from recent episodes and seasons even is just that the family is so clearly and comedically like jaded about all this bizarre stuff, or they've done it so many times that it's just like, oh, another adventure. I've been here before, been there, done that. And that's funny and stuff because it becomes part of their character. But I do think that was maybe missing. Like if you haven't been keeping up with the show, all the best episodes of Rick and Morty are ones that you could just pop on, show to a random person. They have not seen any other episodes, and it's still funny. And all the classics, the Meeseeks, Mr. Creepy Butthole, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of what's missing is they rely so much on the fact that you already know that these characters have been on all these insane adventures before, and they've been there, done that it's not, that when they're experiencing this weird stuff, it's not, you're not seeing the consequences. You're not seeing.
I think that's a good point. And I do think that's why I'm thinking about like this season, one of my favorite Morty moments is like the Morty summer episode. And it's interesting because like seeing Morty carouse around the multiverse and blow shit up isn't new anymore. He's done that a lot. Seeing Morty actually try to like have a date at home with the girl was so interesting because it was completely new territory, or relatively new territory for him. I think even the same thing with like the Morty and Planetina arc in that episode, like in the ending of that episode especially, it just showed us some different stuff going on, which was really great. So I do agree with that point. Yeah.
I agree with you, Ryan. I think you've unlocked why I didn't like this episode as much. I think you figured it out for me. Which is last time I was here when we were with Billy, he talked a bunch about like setting up emotional stakes for the characters and like their emotional investment in things and having to overcome things to achieve needs and sort of we see what they want, they pursue it, and then you get an emotional investment in these characters, and it's really true in the early seasons of Rick and Morty especially. And I think that because every character in the family, particularly Morty, is so jaded that like no selling the weird shit only goes so far for me over a long enough period of time. That like I want them to be reacting to this shit. I want those big reactions. I want those like weird, inexplicable behaviors. Instead, because they no sell a lot of this stuff. Because Morty's just like, oh, giant robots, not boobs. Ugh, grandpa. Like instead of sort of like really reacting to it, I just don't get that level of like. I don't get that level. And some of the best shit in the show is like these really emotionally heavy moments they pull the rug out of. Like my favorite one, the one that we've talked about before that used to be my email signature, is like they've just buried their bodies in the backyard and he tells Summer that and then is like, let's go watch TV. And that moment hits so hard because it's emotionally...
One of the best moments in the show.
Yeah, it's emotionally heavy and crazy. And then they just yank their rug out and are just like, fuck you, sit on it and spin, dickholes. And I love that. I like when shows are mean to me that way because I'm a nasty little pig boy. And like this season has not really been doing that because they've been no-selling your investment in these characters because they're no-selling these characters like reactions to the world around them. I think this episode was like had so much to react to and got so little reaction from the characters, and that's where I think the disconnect was for me.
Yeah, Ryan, I want to hear you have to think about that, but real quick, shout out to Prairie Fire in the chat who threw some coin our way. Hope you're enjoying the episode. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Prairie Fire.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I mean, not thank you to actual prairie fires that destroy communities and continue to devastate America's agricultural backbone. But as a username, I love it. I just want to be clear that no one like takes a clip out because thus far in this episode, if someone wanted to take audio out, you could make Ryan say, I love incest. And then you can make any of us say that we think it's good when the heartland burns. So I just wanted to be clear on both those points. We do not
now
like
you can make you say I love incest.
Fuck!
You said, well, we both of us did it.
See, that's why you got to say shit like I'm a nasty little pig boy and just own it. Because then if they clip it out, you're like, yeah, I did say
that's
it.
a good point.
I'm a nasty little pig boy. I'm a nasty little pig boy.
Wow. Okay. Someone needs to teach Matt Damon to say that in interviews. It'll work out good. We're getting hot button, baby. No, I'm kidding. But what do you, I mean, whether it's about, what Lux was just saying, Ryan, or something else, I mean, like, what do we think? Did this episode have anything interesting to say about the family and their kind of like growing dynamic? Because I do think it was cool that we started off with Summer on an adventure. We got to explore Summer and Rick kind of getting along in a different way. Seeing them Voltron together as a family was kind of neat. So do we think the show is growing to this point where it's slowly becoming less and less Rick and Morty and more the Smith family plus Weird Grandpa?
I love the part. What was the motto they kept saying about families? Just like it's just it's the one you get. Like I think that's like a nice, sweet little message, and especially funny within the context that they're all in. Like there's literally like that. Sorry, I'm rambling, but that shot of him wandering through the party and being like, "Look, is this my mom? I don't know."
Yeah.
Like literally. And it doesn't matter because like they've been there. They're like, okay, I guess I'll find my real mom at some point. Kind of vibe. Like I don't know. I think that was a just funny visualization of family's important, basically.
Yeah, and it's
you get the one you get, and that's it.
And it messes with that too in a really fun way, where like no one can tell which Jerry's their Jerry because they're all like equally kind of useless and like. There's all this overlap. So it is like the family's the family you get, but also it's like, how much does that matter in a world where there's infinite versions of your family? And like, that's like a really funny thing that I kind of wish they'd pushed on more, but that's like, another thing for another time. But I loved the part where Rick and Summer and Jerry were walking through the hangar and he's like, Wi-Fi doesn't work in my cockpit. And he's like, oh, that's not what I do, Dad. And she's like, oh, I'm not your dad, and I don't know what you do. That was like really excellent and weird, and like that's the kind of shit I love about Rick and Morty is when they play with like the weird rules of their physics and whatnot.
Yeah. Before we wrap up talking about the episode, I did at least want to bring up the anime short that Rick and Morty released on their YouTube page. I know a lot of people have seen it because the view count was very high. which is called Summer Meets God, Rick Meets Evil, 15-minute anime. I watched it shortly before we started this. Lux, I feel like you have thoughts about this. What did you make of the accompanying anime with this episode?
I loved it. This is what I wanted this episode to be. Like, when I saw that this episode, okay, so to fully part the curtain on why I'm here is of the Wisecrack, like, staff, I'm the one who watches a bunch of anime all the time. And when we knew the episode was called Rick, Mort, Gotron, Genesis, Evangelion, whatever, it was like, oh, Lux, you should come on because it's going to be about anime shit. And I was like, sign me up, baby. Love to talk about anime shit. And then it wasn't really. It was about mob movie shit, which is still cool, but not the same. And then they did an anime thing, and they did such a good job with it. And it's really funny because it hit on sort of the classic mech anime themes of like isolation and technology and like the impossibility of love and connectivity and like all those kind of ideas that you see in like Gundam or Evangelion or Code Geass and stuff like that. And I thought it was really great. I thought the animation was really silly. I thought it was weird that they brought the incest idea back again. They just like can't not be doing incest stuff, which is kind of strange. But that was like one of my mounting frustrations is like the main episode had so many good anime references. Like the anime characters were all like pretty perfect parodies of those types of characters. She's reading the magazine called Gundam, like Gundam, but with dumb in it. Really like that. Obviously they nail all the Voltron stuff. And then they have this other whole ass anime they do. And it was like, y'all could have done a straight anime episode. No problem. And you chose not to. And that feels like a direct attack on me as a person.
That's how I read it too, as a direct attack on you as a person.
There was they were like, fuck you, Michael Luxemburg, Austin, Texas. We're coming for you. But yeah, I loved the anime short. I thought it was really great. I thought it was really fun. That was really weird. But I thought it did all the stuff, like turning Rick into like the weird grandpa from an anime who like goes on a weird philosophical tangent at breakfast is like perfect.
Loved that. I made me miss that. Ryan, do you get a chance to see the anime thing?
I didn't know about it till right now.
Yeah, I didn't know about it till very shortly as well. But yeah, it's an interesting compliment to the show. I'll be curious to hear what people think about that. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm pretty sure if you just go to the Rick and Morty YouTube page, it's the first thing that pops up. But there was, it definitely harkened back to some of that classic, like, Rick nihilism that I know many people enjoy a lot, and having discussed like the formlessness of things and how all free will is external forces determining a particular moment that creates the illusion of freedom. It was fun experiencing some of that. I couldn't tell you what happened to save my life, but it was a good hang. So people, check that out. Any other thoughts on the anime before we move on, Lux? I know you're here for a very specific reason. I want to give you a chance to thrive as much as possible in that space.
No, I mean, it was just doing it. So one of the reasons I super popped for the idea of an anime-ish Rick and Morty is because Rick and Morty trades in some very anime-ish themes. Particularly technology, isolation, stuff like that. And this little thing that they were doing the side thing was very that.
Also, the good thing about that is because of the way we put the podcast together, everyone who listens to the podcast is going to hear you very clearly. We currently did not get to hear those deep insights. So if you're on the live stream right now and you also couldn't hear Lux, it's a great excuse to listen to the podcast when it comes out in a couple of days because the audio will be clear there. So while Lux figures out his audio, which, happens. It's technology. We can't all be Sanchez. Get in touch with us. Whether it's about this episode, this episode is contentious for us, so we'd like to hear what you all think about it. Are you in the A, B, or C club? But don't come to us with the D club. That's too aggressive. There's no universe where it was a D. But you can hit us up. Okay. Yeah. Well, sure. Be honest. Just be honest. We want to be honest with you. We want you to be honest with us. We're all friends here. So shoot us an email if you want to talk about it at squanch@wisecrack.co. No M's involved there. That's just squanch@wisecrack.co, or give us a call. 213-534-8807. That's 213-534-8807. You hear how what our voices sound like. We like to hear what your voices sound like. It's only fair. So I think to get started, we have some voicemails. I need to update the Prairie Fire situation before We hear those voicemails. Prairie Fire lets us know prairie fires are good, controlled, and needed for ecological balance. Wildfires destroy homes and burn organic matter out of the topsoil. Love your work. Sorry for adding more buzzwords. Awesome. That's super good to know. I was listening to something on the radio the other day about how like California would be on fire less if we just burned like a little bit all the time. But because people thought that was bad because of like Smokey the Bear and stuff, we stopped burning anything. And now there's so much like shit on the topsoil that when there's like a little lightning strike or like one person doing a gender reveal party with too many fireworks, the state just starts on fire. So Prairie Fire, you should be in charge of these things. Is Lux still is he gone? Okay, can't hear him still, so we're going to continue to act like he's gone for a second. Let's hear some voicemails. Wonderful producer Maddie, if you want to cue those up, we'll listen to those now.
Hello, this message is for Squanch Podcast. Hi, it's Nathan from the Off 5 Podcast. I was calling in to say that I think one thing that gets overlooked with the new season of Rick and Morty, actually all the seasons, is that it seems kind of scattered, and that is often brought up as a weakness. But one of the plus sides of that is, I don't know, in comedy, I think that one of the saddest things you can see is when someone's just driving an idea into the ground. And I think with Rick and Morty, they show a lot of creativity, and they're not like precious about any one idea, so they don't get stuck on it. Even though I love Patton Oswalt, he has a bit about Florida looking like a penis, and another one about My Little Pony. Both of those bits, even though I love him, they just go on forever, and to me, it always feels like he's struggling in those bits that he found an idea and he thinks that he can write it to the end. And it's just not something I like to see. I like to hear that there's just like new ideas coming up, and I think probably the new writers are helping with that. That's all I wanted to say. I love the podcast. I really also think you should do a podcast about solar opposites because season 2 is one of the funniest shows on television. Bye.
Wow, thank you so much. That was a great voicemail.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that, Ryan? Like that idea that in the show, but in comedy more generally, there's value in not running an idea into the ground and like throwing a lot out there, as opposed to, I'm not totally familiar with the Patton Oswalt joke he was talking about, but I know I can think of lots of examples in, both TV and stand up where people maybe get too excited about one idea and take it too far.
Yeah, no, I 100%. If I have to choose between the two extremes, I absolutely would prefer somebody throwing all this stuff against the wall and then me just not liking some of it, than me being like, okay, we've seen this so many times, and I kind of feel like The Simpsons or something is like that, where it's just like it feels pretty stale and recycled at this point. But I've really been impressed with the swings that the Rick and Morty, the new writers are all taking. I know when anyone hears new writers or in the writers' room, it's like, oh shit, are they just going to be trying to pretend that they're the old writers, or are they going to, bring something new to the table and it actually be good? And I've had both, kind of like what Lux said at the beginning, peaks and valleys. Like there's been the things I've liked this season. I've been like, wow, that's awesome that this new group of writers, it still feels fresh and stuff. But then there's been a couple times where I'm like, okay, that one just wasn't, that one just missed for me.
Now, it really makes me think, and I know I brought up the show before, but really reminds me of like the journey of the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, another show I love and a lot of Wisecrack fans love. But it's a show that started out, and the original dudes were writing most of that show early on. And then a few seasons in, they start to expand the writing staff, and it gets weird, a little uneven. Some people kind of fell out of it. But then it finds its legs again. And has continued to be an interesting show. I think they're filming season 13 right now. But it's a show that's often thrown a lot of different stuff out there, tries different things in different episodes with genre, with the stakes of it, with emotional relationships and the characters. And I do think in comedy, I'd rather take some like controlled chaos than too much of an emphasis on one idea or one narrative to drive things. So I agree.
Does It's Always Sunny do they have a whole new staff of writers in season 13? I always thought it was just assumed it was the main 5 people always writing the show. Maybe that was
I think
ignorant of me.
I think as those people have had like other stuff going on, they've brought on more and more writers. And I know that like some of their team also works on Mythic Quest and stuff now. So like every season, I like to pay attention to this stuff or just like see who gets jobs so I can know who to be like jealous of if I see him around. And Always Sunny has definitely brought in some like new people in recent years. And Always Sunny is a show as well that this isn't an Always Sunny podcast, I know, but just done a good job as well over the years of like changing, like letting some characters change and even letting the style of comedy change in a way that doesn't feel like they're reacting to culture, but that they're just like adjusting with the times, growing with new ideas, and not like stuck in the early 2000s where they started, which is nice because who wants to go back there? I don't know. The early 2000s were fine, I guess. Yeah. So Maddie, was there another voicemail?
What's up, Squanch? Gentlemen, I will bet you my orange rug the evil Morty's coming back this season. I'll tell you why I think that, too. Because we've seen him in the later half of season 1, and then we've seen him again in the later half of season 3, and it's just that time again. I think he's coming back. I think he's going to pull the rug out from under us, pull our socks off. I bet you my orange rug. What do you guys think?
Well,
Holy
first
shit,
of
we're
all,
gonna get an orange rug out of this.
yeah, I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie. If I had an orange rug, you bet your ass I'm not betting it if I'm not confident, right? Orange rug's a nice thing to have. I like that he wants to raise the stakes. What do you think? Just call it right now. Ryan Haley, is Evil Morty coming back?
I'm gonna go no. Yeah, just mainly because I want that orange rug. But I have
Yeah.
nothing to back this up with. But it seems like it's been a while. We haven't really, that would be a true inside, like to bring him back now after a couple seasons. I guess that's what they did in season 3. But I don't know, dude. What do you think?
I'm gonna just go the other way because I don't need the rug because I don't have final say on interior decorating in my home, sadly. And I think the person who does say would not let me use the orange rug. To be clear, I would want to use it. I'm gonna say yeah. I think there could be something fun going on there. And I think here's what I do think. I think something big and surprising is gonna happen in episode 9 or 10. But I don't know what that thing is. But Evil Morty working his way in could be something. And if it was revealed at like the end of an episode after we see Morty get up to some shit that we're like, oh, what's he doing with this? So I'm not sure if it's going to be Evil Morty, but I just think something's going to happen. I know that's very vague, but I just feel like something's happening.
I think you're right. Something is gonna happen. Which is very
Yes,
vague,
I
but-
bet my life that something will happen.
Yeah, I bet my blue rug. But he might be onto something in the sense that what I was gonna say was that they would maybe finish out the whole decoy story arc with maybe Rick literally tries and goes on a massacre and kills every single Rick that's ever existed except for him to try and be a true Highlander situation. And then I could see maybe Evil Morty being brought into the fold, but still, to get the orange rug, I'm just gonna stick with my Evil Morty's not coming back.
That's
I'll
fair.
give you my address for the rug later.
Yeah. Hit us back up. We're excited to
Off
see
stream.
what happens. We love bets. This is the #1 Rick and Morty gambling podcast. So if you want to gamble and make bets on Rick and Morty stuff, we'll give you the lines. Got a bunch of really good emails this week. I don't know if I'll have time to get to all of them right now, but just in general, if you emailed us this week, great job. So here's the first one. This is from Spencer. And Spencer said this. America was founded, and this is about the Thanksgiving special. America was founded a relatively short time ago in an age with good record keeping. This causes dissonance when our creation myth bumps with the historical record, but older nations don't have this problem. Is the story of Romulus and the Wolf or any other often ethnocentric national creation myth true? Casting the parties of the first Thanksgiving as aliens lets us focus on the aspirational part of our myth. The story chosen to represent America's founding is about two races coming together to help each other out. In quotes, I never get tired of that. True or not, it sure beats myths about Ubermensch and superhumans. Thank you for that, Spencer. So yeah, a little reflection on the thematics of the last episode, and that's something that Ryan, you and me and Riley were talking about last week. So I think that's a fun point, that America is so young. We have a different relationship to these these myths as opposed to like European countries that have been around for just decades, at least decades.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add. I thought that was a good point.
Email. Yeah, pretty much. Me neither.
Thanks, Spencer. So this is Victor also writing about that episode, and Victor's perspective is basically that like he's from Europe and thinks we're funny. So I'll read the email. Victor says, "It was very interesting watching Thanksploitation Spectacular from a perspective of someone from an Eastern European country. In my mind, the United States of America exists more as a crazy TV show than as a country. This, and because it's very funny. This, and because of my lack of knowledge about traditions and overall history of America, I had absolutely no idea what was an actual reference to reality and was just a made-up thing for the plotline. For example, I totally thought the turkey pardoning was 100% made up for the plot, and that it wasn't a thing. Yeah, it wasn't a real thing in American life. Only after watching the Squanch, I learned about this tradition, and honestly, it still doesn't sound real. I'm glad that the Squanch is the #1 source for American cultural practice teaching the world." It goes on to say, "I had a lot of fun watching the episode and learning bits of American history just to understand the references made in the episode. The history of the Statue of Liberty, what is up with turkeys on Thanksgiving, who is FDR, and why is he a spider? Anyways, I think this episode says something about the way we share and create our history. From an outsider perspective, you can't really distinguish real historical facts and events from fakery and hyperbole meant to just spice up the story we want to tell." So that's Victor from Eastern Europe, whose main point is we're a silly TV show, and some of the stuff that we take for granted, he's reminding us that people not from this country are like, is that a real thing? Do you pardon turkeys?
That is an amazing point. Yeah, because we're already taking for granted the fact that we know this the baseline of the story, and they're just building off of it. But if people don't know the base story, then they're just completely lost. Hello, Lux, you're back.
Hey guys, I'm back just in time to talk about one of my favorite things, which is the constructions of national mythologies.
Wow, just in time.
Yeah, it really swung in here just in time. So like, yeah, I think Victor's getting at a really good point, which is that like history's too big for anyone to ever know all of it, like even all historians combined. So at a certain point, like you're making selections on what goes in and what goes out and how you fill those gaps. And that's all matters of like perspective and research and like make them ups. And that's where like these kind of made up stories come in, and like traditions fill those gaps. Stuff like turkey pardoning fills those gaps. And like, I think that it's totally right that from any outside perspective, if you like look at the weird ways countries construct themselves along those lines, they're always going to look a little bit strange. And America's are particularly strange because our national myths happened when like guns existed, as opposed to like back in like swords times. Like it's like not a fantastical setting, but we still have these same fantastical mythologies as like Romulus and Remus, or like, you know, like the founding of Greece or whatever.
Those are the two main historical eras: swords time and gun time,
and caveman times.
Yeah, and then rock time.
Yeah, but no, it's always cool hearing someone from like a different culture reflect on ours. And I know I can still remember some of the first times in my life I really got to like hang out with someone who grew up in a different part of the world and say things for granted about America and how we live, and them just being like, "That's a little weird," and at first being like, "What are you talking about? You're weird." But then realizing that like people do different stuff, and some stuff we do seems weird as shit. And my brain can get there to imagining being like, wait, so this country has a national holiday where they pardon a big bird, a bird that most of the world doesn't even enjoy eating because we think the meat's dry, and you eat it and you pardon it? That's fun. Got another email from
birds have done like real crimes.
Yeah. I know, there's some homicidal turkeys out there. So this one's from Steven. Steven said, "Just finished listening to your episode on Rick and Morty's Thanksploitation Spectacular. Here is my attempt to identify a unifying thematic thread in this episode, as I think there might be one. The concept the show seems to be exploring is our national identity. The opening scene foreshadows this when Morty destroys a number of our national treasures, thus setting the stage for the show to destroy America's intangible national treasure, our national identity." Here, Steven says in parentheses, might be a bit of a stretch. He then says, "The episode seems to reflect on our national identity. Here are my examples." And he runs through a list. I might not say all these. The soldiers in Americana theme throughout, the silly presidential turkey pardoning, the way America is using the term terrorist as a new national enemy, Superman joke, the New Deal, and FDR bit, the Thanksgiving backdrop for the episode, and the awesome awkward Thanksgiving dinner scene. I think there is much to unpack on this topic in the self-serving Congress, the literal connection at the end of our national treasure being our national myths that underlie our identity. Finally, Morty's loss of feeling special in his monologue at the end. Okay, that's what I got. I thought I would send this on to see what the professional podcasters think. Also, thank you so much, Stephen, for referencing one of the ongoing bits of the last episode that we were consummate professionals. I just appreciate that. Stephen pays attention. But a lot going on there. So basic point, theme of the episode was American identity and some issues with it. Lux, that's your area of expertise. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it gets to kind of what I was saying before, but in the context of America, it's especially bizarre, right? Because like we can see the cool from like an anthropological, sociological perspective, maybe not from like a living in the world perspective, thing about America is that we can see American history getting rewritten in real time all the time, right? Like we have constant discussions about like what was actually happening when Columbus got here, or like who was really benefiting from X or Y policy, or like what the New Deal really did, or why they made it, or what the AFL-CIO had to do with it. That's just a thing I've been researching recently. But like we are constantly talking about like a great example is like the 1619 project versus the 1776 project, were two different, radically different versions describing the same period of history. And like to various political and sociological ends for sure. But like the point being that we are living in a time, and this has been true for the entirety of America because it's such a relatively new country for its relative power scale. We are seeing that history get rewritten constantly. And I think this email is exactly right that like we try to hold on to an identity of Americanism, but that identity keeps changing the goalposts all the time. Because like in the 90s, it was a melting pot. In the 80s, it was greed is good. In the 70s and 60s, it was like free love, but also no communism. Like we've had these different shifting identities for a really long time. And it's a very fascinating thing that it is a constant project. And we see that all the time. I mean, like, remember, like, people were talking about how, like, and this happened recently, where, like, after Simone Biles dropped out of the Olympics thing, people were posting about how, like, you think the D-Day soldiers went home and got upset about their mental health? And it's like, no, I don't think so. I know so. Like, there's a ton of evidence that they all went to fucking mental hospitals for their PTSD when they got back. And that tons of people couldn't serve in Germany because they had to be treated for that shit. Like, the history of everything about America is rewritten and recontextualized in live action all the time. And it is, in my academic thinky brain, the coolest shit in the world. And in my, like, I'm alive and a person brain, like, the scariest shit on earth. Yeah, but it's very fascinating.
Two quick things. I wonder if we could call that new Woodstock documentary the 1999 Project. And two, friend of this show and many Wisecrack shows, Megan Roach in the chat, threw some money our way to say thanks. We appreciate it. And she said, this one goes out to Ryan, mailman voice, my man.
All right.
So
thank you.
So that is Ryan, and by process of elimination, by singling out Ryan, she is saying fuck you, Lux and Burns. That's what I think just
and
happened.
She's
there.
right to do it.
100% right. I agree. If I was gonna be nice to us, I would only be nice to Ryan.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, my video looks frozen. Anyway, yeah. Thank you,
Your
Megan.
video is
You
frozen.
look cool. You look focused.
Yeah, it's like a really good look. It's a really good picture of you.
Yeah.
Oh,
So let's do one last. Let's do it. I'm gonna be a completist. One last email, and then we'll wrap it up. This is from Nick, and this is a theory about the show as a whole. So I'm be curious to see what you guys think about this. He says, I was just rewatching some good old season 1's classics and noticed something at the start of episode 2. They're going to Inception Mr. Goldenfold to give Morty's A in math. As Rick was saying this, I thought of two scenes in Mr. G's classroom. Season 3, episode 6, when Morty tells Goldenfold he's the common denominator since they're all bored, and he basically just congratulates Morty for his cheek. This person must be British, because when cheekiness, I feel like is a very British thing to say.
Very British sentence construction.
So shouts to you, Nick. Season 4, episode 1, Nick points out, when Morty squiggles a weird line on the board, instead of showing an acidic integer on the pH scale, Goldenfold gives him an A+ in confidence. It actually seems like Morty can do no wrong in Goldenfold's classroom. Dan and Justin play it fast and loose with continuity on the show. I just wondered if one of the things that is true in the Rick and Morty multiverse is that all the possible Mr. Goldenfolds have been successfully incepted with the giving Morty A's in math idea. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. What do you guys think? I'm sure I'm not the first to pick up on this, but thought it might be a funny wink from the writers. Did they math inception the teacher?
Jesus, that is a deep dive. I have no idea. He probably is the first person to pick up on that. Am I crazy? Have you guys been?
I definitely, you definitely get the vibe that Goldenfold is like a real pushover when it comes to Morty, but I never connected that to the events of episode 2.
Yeah, I just I like that way of thinking, Nick, that you're keeping that in mind while watching other episodes. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I think that's cool. And I like the idea that with such a lack of continuity in the show, that they would pick that as like one of the few things that's continuous across the universe is that Morty is incepted the teacher to get A's in math class. I like that. I wish I would have done that.
It also kind of makes a lot of sense in the context of the show where like that is the most like you're a teen with a magical grandpa like thing to do is to like make sure your teacher gives you A's no matter what using whatever technology is available. And if it's Inception because it's Rick and Morty. Yeah. But like,
I thought my grandpa was magical at one point, but then I learned he was just racist and mean. I got magic and those things confused.
That'll happen.
My dad told me, Ryan, your son, your dad can do anything. And then like I took that, I'm like so literally, I'm like, you can fly and do anything? What? Like I'm like 4, like anything.
Yeah, it's a weird line as a dad, you know, because if you're like, listen, kid, I'm just some fucking guy, okay? I'm not a hero. I'm just some dude. Then this kid's gonna have a crisis of confidence. Like, how can I believe in you? But then if you're like, I'm the heroic man who can do everything. Eventually then that shell is going to crack. So if you have any thoughts on, you know, squaring the circle of parenting, let us know at squanch@wisecrack.co or 213-534-8807. But generally, thanks to everyone who emailed and wrote. Ryan, what's up?
I was going to say, on that note, I thought Jeff Iverson in the chat made a while ago made a really good point that this season seems to be about humbling Rick. Season 3 was about him taking over, and it took a season for it to go bad. This season, he screws up in almost every episode. And yeah, I think that there is something to that Rick is kind of being brought down to earth, you know, like everybody in the family kind of idolizes him in a way. Even in this episode, you saw like the lengths Summer went to just get his approval, even though he's fucked up so many times. I think that there's something to the idea that they're kind of taking what do you call it, a cult of personality, which is just what Rick is, and then just kind of bringing him down, knocking him down a peg, and showing that he's a human being with giant flaws like everybody else.
Love that. And thanks for everyone in the chat for hanging out as always. The only reason I don't shout it out more is that if I opened the chat on my computer with everything else, it would make a really loud noise and potentially blow up. But I'm glad that the action's happening there.
I'm glad it didn't happen,
yeah. Cool. So hit us up. And definitely kind of following Nick here. If you have any like theories that spread throughout the seasons or connect stuff together, let's throw those out. That's kind of fun. And if you want to bet us anything, whether it be rugs or any other stuff, we're always down to take a bet. This week, just so everyone knows, we are not doing a video about this episode. So if you're waiting for it, don't. But in the meantime, if you want to bug any of us on social media, starting with Ryan, where can they do it? Where can they see more of you and your delicious content?
Ryan Shorts on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, and Ryan's Game Show on Twitter, where I'll post some shit.
Awesome. So seeing your Twitter post last night about the event you threw for your roommate was incredible.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah,
that's a good post.
We could do a whole podcast just me asking you questions about that. I guess we'll do it another time and make it for Patreons only. Join our Patreon. Lux, where can people search for you on the internet to @ you and tell you that you're wrong?
All right. Well, if you want to @ me and tell me that I'm wrong, it's @tail_boy on Twitter. Because I was born with a vestigial tail. And if you want to see the things that I make, you can see I stream occasionally on @twitch.tv/chimroom and every Thursday @twitch.tv/forestwalker, where I stream Shin Megami Tensei, a game that I'm not that good at, but I think is really cool. And I produce a wrestling show called Party World Wrestling that you can see on Twitch at twitch.tv/partyworldwrestling. Also, it's all on YouTube. And that's on Twitter at Party Death Cult. Spelled weird, but I can't exactly remember how because it's real weird. You can figure it out. And you can also see all the videos that I make with Burns on Free and Wisecrack.
Wow. So if you're like me, you currently feel like an asshole because Lux does a million things and you just do a couple. So I'm the slacker of the bunch to say, if you don't do a lot of stuff, you're also okay. God loves everyone, no matter how much you do. Yeah, if you want to hit me up, it's Michael O. Burns on Twitter and Instagram. But like, stay off my Instagram because someone did the thing where they're trying to get my account canceled because they don't like me, and that's not chill. I'm pretty mad about it. So don't do that. If that's you,
I really would like to know more about that.
If that's you, just hit me up and we could talk it out. We could just talk it out like friends because sometimes we think we hate people, but then you just talk to them like a person and you realize they're just trying their best. And if there's one thing we've learned from this episode is that you get the family you get, and that has nothing to do with this. But
the person messaging me on Instagram is my cousin.
Is my cousin, yeah. I got a lot of cousins. Some of them are psychopaths, so it could be true. But we got to go now. So for myself, for Lux, for Ryan Haley, this has been the Squanch. We'll see you next time. And the final word, as always, goes to Ryan Haley. Level up and up now from Hollywood.